I feel like I always did have a passion for business. When at the age of 13, I was growing fruit and veg at home and selling them to local people as like vegetable boxes to make a bit of money. So I suppose that entrepreneurial kind of business spirit was always within. But then when I grew up through school, I really got involved in music. That was one of my biggest passions growing up through my teenage years. I started playing bass guitar at the age of 13, 14. That's whenever I started looking into actually starting my own music business, crafting musical instruments at the age of 16. I was playing at my friend's house one night, having a practice session, and he had told me he got this new drum, and so that evening I went round to his house and was looking for this drum kit he bought, but it wasn't actually a drum kit, it was a cajon drum, a box drum that you sat and played with your hands. It's the first time I ever saw one, first time I ever played one, and I was blown away by the sound and the simplicity of the actual product itself. So I went home and just was totally awestruck by this and decided, you know what, I'm going to build one of these myself. And it was actually my closest friends at the time bought my first 2 cajons off me. I found myself even taking phone calls during free periods, and during class I was going out to the toilets to take phone calls from guys looking to building custom cajons. And there was this guy in Scotland, and this was the real turning point. Guy in Scotland, I was in upper 6th, and he called me up and said, Stephen, I want you to put an actual kick pedal inside one of your cajons for me. I love your designs and I want you to do this. And I was like, mate, this has never been done before. There's obviously a reason why. And he's pushing me and I was like, hold on. It was like a light bulb moment. I was like, no one's ever done this before. There's obviously an opportunity. And so I designed this with him in Scotland, just online via email, send each other designs, agreed a price for like my time on this, and built this cajon. It was called the Mark III, and it was the first ever cajon in the world to have an internal bass pedal system, is what I called it. So wasn't very creative with the terminology, but thought it would just describe exactly what it was and what it done. Contacted a number of shops, and I contacted Invest Northern Ireland, who's a government support agency. The 11th of July 2013, sun was split in the sky, drove up to Belfast to match his music, and within 10 minutes of me walking in and putting on a display of all of our cajons on the floor for the owner, I walked out with my first purchase order. He placed an order for like 2 of every model, and like that was incredible. We only ever made one at a time before, and this was like 6 cajons to go home and made. And I kid you not, as soon as I got home that day, postman had been there, there was a letter from me from Invest Northern Ireland saying, we're going to back you, you're going to work with Queen's University now from September on to take your designs further, make them more commercially viable, and work with our engineers to go to the next step. So instead of one or the other, it's both. So I was like, this is the answer. It's an answer to prayer. It's obviously where I'm meant to be. But we just close this door because it's very untidy. Whenever I started in 2011, when I was 16, like I always had a dream of building a guitar. Like play bass guitar, as I said, and always just had this desire to build one. I was like, I wonder could I do that. So I built my first guitar in 2018. I remember just saying New Year's Day, right, this year I will build a guitar, and by the end of January I built a guitor. I just went to the extreme side of things. So over the course of the next year or two, we bettered the designs, tried to make them more playable and sound really good, and worked with a lot of musicians across Northern Ireland to do that. And we reached out to a couple of different bands, Enter Shikari being one of them, Ray Reynolds, and also Bury Tomorrow, a guy called David. He's a bass player for that band, and 2 like rock bands, because our sound was more tuned to that style of music and that genre. It just suited it better, the way we had styled the guitar and set it all up with the electronics. So very heavy music, but David from Bury Tomorrow took one of my guitars, and he was using a very, very well-known, globally recognised brand for a long time. Played a real bass guitar, and he called me up and said, "Stephen, this is the best bass guitar I've ever played." And I was blown away. Like, I'm getting shivers thinking about the conversation I had in this very porter cabin. And long and short of it is, he took 3 guitars off us, like literally 3 bass guitars. Yeah, so in 2015 I closed my first distribution deal. They had said they needed that in 12 weeks. And typical Stephen fashion, I was like, I'll get you in 8 weeks. It was ridiculous, and I was still operating out of my dad's garage, pumping a container load of cajones. So my dad at the time, worked elsewhere, and he was getting up early in the morning to help me machine the big sheets of material. We had to empty the garage entirely to run these sheet material on the table saw and then bring everything back in. That was every day. And I was working day and night, Monday through to Saturday. It was ridiculous hours. I got the order out, and it was a fantastic achievement, but I learned not to work those kind of hours ever again. So that was a massive win. From that, they said we're going to be buying a container worth every single quarter, every 3 months, which was massive for us. So we went ahead and built a brand new workshop. By the time it got to Christmas of that year, a competitor had come in from a German manufacturer had come into the UK marketplace via another distribution deal that we didn't know was going on. The exchange rate with euro to pounds at the time meant that they were £5 to £10 cheaper per model, which is about 5 to 10%, and their quality was better. They were in business for about 15 years at this stage, and like I was only in a few years, and my quality wasn't there, didn't have the same machinery. So that slammed the business. I had scaled it up, invested heavy, employed staff full time. All of a sudden our cash flow was just doing this, and we were about to go bust. Definitely like a feeling that I wouldn't want to feel again. It was like a mixture of feelings, like, have I made the wrong calls here? You just felt it at the bottom of your stomach. You just felt awful. I was like, I need to do something about this. I sold a few pieces of machinery that didn't necessarily need. Cut my wages right back to like £30 a week. And the guy who was with us full time was like more than willing to go down to 2 days a week, which was fantastic. I was so thankful for that. So he still stayed with us, and for that next year and a half I went hardline product design and development, market analysis on global music industry, what's the best selling products, where is there a need within the marketplace. Held loads of focus groups across Northern Ireland to talk to musicians as to what they want, what they need, and came out then with hardwood pedal boards. So that took off, and with that in mind, we went to the NAMM show then to display these in California, and spent a good chunk of money going over there. And with that in mind, talked to a lot of people, and people were saying, would love you to make hardwood guitar stands, because your hardwood pedal boards, it would match them perfectly. So we came home with that feedback, and again, it was another breadwinner for us, and still to this day, the SKU that I designed following that 2018 NAMM visit is still our best selling SKU. It's our GS1 guitar stand. It's an upright guitar stand made from solid timber, and essentially what we decided to do was focus on the guitar market within the music industry, because it was the biggest, and it offered the most opportunity for us. There's a saying that a lot of like American companies will go by, and startup companies, where it's like fail fast, so they actually celebrate failures, which is something we don't really do in our Northern Irish culture. We see failure as a very negative thing, but in business in the early days, failing at various activities is actually a good thing, because then you start to understand where the successful route to take is.
How does the CEO and director of musical instrument / accessory company pivot into fulfillment?
Yeah, so
how does that happen?
Two totally different industries, like entirely. So obviously I was running my own e-commerce business. That's what Ruach is. E-commerce first is what I always coined it. We also sold the trade, but it was e-commerce first. And so with that in mind, we done a Kickstarter campaign, which is a crowdfunding platform for businesses and individuals to go on to get support for their ideas. So I was successful and raised around £14,000 on Kickstarter campaign. Queen's University's business school then contacted me to ask would I do some consulting for them and for their students to teach them how to go about actually setting up a successful crowdfunding campaign. So I done that, and one of the students, who's a lot older than myself, had a very good business startup. This business person said to me at the end of the call, "Right, Stephen, we're ready to go. Thank you so much for your time, but whenever I import these goods to sell them online and to give them to these people who support me, like, do you have anywhere like you can recommend me bring this, because my garage is too small?" And then straight away, I think it was just the business spirit, entrepreneurial spirit in me. It just was like, I have space in my loft. I have accounts with FedEx and Parcel Force. I could do this. So I said to her, I says, look, I could take it in if you want. I could send you across a pricing proposal. So I sent her across a price for warehousing it in our loft upstairs, which had space for this 40-foot container, and for picking and packing it and shipping it. I did not know it was an industry. I did not know it was a business. I just knew that when I had space, I can charge for that extra revenue. I have freight accounts. I could put a slight markup on that and keep my accounts active with FedEx and Parcel Force and make them happy to get even cheaper rates for everybody, and then get paid for my time. So what is that? Well, I'll charge per pick. And I accidentally stumbled into a fulfillment business. So we, as I say, I started in 2019. My wife and I, my family ran it. We were running Ruach Music at the time, and then in the mornings we were running out and shipping all these parcels, coming back into the office or the workshop. We ran that until January of 2021, when we took on our first full-time employee. And I had the foresight to go, right, this employee and operations manager now sounds a bit counterintuitive. Would you not think of a warehouse operative or something along those lines? But I thought, let's bring in a warehouse manager and operations manager now, so as in they can be part of that journey as we scale this up and bring employees underneath to learn from us. So that was the journey. We done that. We then brought an assistant operations manager in, and then started bringing in warehouse operatives from there. And that was just, we landed a deal with a new client, brought them in, new client, brought them in, realised we needed more help, advertised, got people in. And so we have a fantastic team now, a really, really hard working team. There's over 25 people now here on site working within fulfillment, and that's across clerical, admin, picking and packing, the whole infrastructure behind it. So it's amazing, like, to now have over 70 businesses here that we do their operations for, and that's importing, warehousing, picking, packing, dispatching. We wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be here at this stage in business without family. Like, in the early days, mum and dad were working endless hours for free, and for a good few years, and the same as myself. And then my wife came along, obviously, as a girlfriend, and quite early on she was able to assist with the finance side of the business. So family is critical to who we are, and I like to think, and I do see that within the values of the team as well. We treat the team as family. We're very relational, understanding of people's needs, and just see it as one big family here now.